What's the point to shaped and experimental boards? Haven't we basically figured out the ideal skateboard shape by now? Welcome back to Rad Rat Video, a channel all about skateboarding where we discuss skateboarding in all of its different forms. In this series, you guys send in questions by going to radratvideo.com and I answer them. The first one is from Aaron, who has not only the same first name as me, but also the same last name. And it's just spelled a little bit different. And when I got this email, I thought, when did I make this fake email for myself? Very strange. And that had a big part of why I picked this one. But let's take a look at the question. If you've ever seen Trey the Tank skate, you'll notice his unique leg stees when he lands big drops. It's almost like his knees and thighs bend inwards while his lower legs stay outwards. Is this a technique to reduce impact or just part of his style? Hoping you can science us on this one. So Trey is 10 years old, at least in the clip that I saw, so he's very small. If he's going to land on the bolts, his legs are more apart than ours would be growing up. I assume you look exactly like me too, in addition to having the same name. So like, while you might land and bend down, when your legs are further apart, they just kind of bend inward. So the science of it, that's not necessarily good. You don't want impact on your knees that it's going at an angle. They do their best hinging like a knee is supposed to and not doing this on the way down. But the most important thing when you're trying to absorb impact is to increase the amount of time it takes to absorb that impact. If you land completely stiff, you just land and you absorb it all in this one hit. So you're trying to land and slow yourself down. You know, it's like if you get in a car crash, the amount of your hood that crumples as you come to a stop, is the amount of distance, the amount of time that it takes for you to come to zero is the amount of force that you're taking. So if you can slow it down by you bend your knees, then that's the most important part. That's not a special technique that would work better, and I don't recommend trying to add that in to your style, as long as nothing weird's going on with your knees and they're not popping when you're landing, then I think you're doing all right. Okay. Hi, Radrat. Next question. This is from Raphael. It says, I have two questions. The first one is very similar to one I'll do later, so I'll just group those together. The second part was, when doing a blunt slide, does the tail have to touch the ground or the obstacle? Is it still considered or called a blunt when the two wheels slide on top of the obstacle and the tail is balanced like a manual? I've heard the terms tail power slide and manual slide. They don't seem to be very well known. Question also goes for nose blunts. So he sent this clip, and at that point I was just thinking like, yeah, that's the same thing. That doesn't really make much of a difference. And then I found one myself just by chance. I happened to see this one as well. And this one is a lot more obvious. This is just like you're doing a manual, but sideways. And I wouldn't have considered it much of a difference. And I wouldn't consider it a very technical thing. You know, like if you are in your blunt, let me find a bluntable object. How about this VHS tape I have here? If you're doing a blunt slide, like this is a blunt, this is a blunt, this is a blunt, this is a blunt, and then this isn't, I don't think it's quite like that. If you are like roughly on the coping, roughly on the edge, then it's a blunt. If you're like right in the middle, then I might call that something different. A power slide manual, I think, is a fine enough name for it. But it just depends on what you intended to do and if it looks that much different. You know, it's a very, very similar trick. If you're doing a blunt on a ledge or a box that's flat, the technique doesn't even matter. Like, a technique isn't that much different anyway. So, you know, if it just looks different but it feels the same, I don't know. I don't think there's a very strong answer to that. But I do think if you do like a very extreme version, then it does make sense to call it something different just for clarity. All right. The next question is this a nose slide or a blunt slide? This is from Tony. So this is a clip from a game, and I think for most people you'd say back nose blunt, but technically the coping is on your front side as you approach it. So is it a front nose slide? You know, often games will consider it that because technically it makes sense. But no, if your weight is on your wheels and they're sliding, it's almost always a blunt, unless it's a power slide like we just talked about. But that is definitely a nose blunt in that particular case. The next question is from Mark, who is asking about non-popsicle shaped boards. It says that some skaters are choosing to use boards with old school or weird shapes. There are even some brands like Welcome that sell almost exclusively non-standard boards. These shapes often look quite cool, and I'd embrace the weirdness, but I'm a little afraid that they might just perform worse than the Popsicles. So what is your take on this? Are they just a quirky style choice, or are there any benefits to these shapes? Thank you for your content, and have a fast recovery, Mark. Right. So regarding my recovery, this was sent a while ago. I may have still had COVID when this was sent. Sometimes it takes a while to get to the questions depending on how I group them. But I've also been recovering with my knee. So I went to physical therapy for a while, tried to loosen up my IT band, and I was doing all kinds of exercises and stuff. And it feels pretty good. And then I got really sick for a while. I don't know. I haven't been able to skate enough to know if it's really better yet, or if it's better just trying to walk, I'm not so sure yet, but I think it's going all right. I have got some notes here, like about Nora's board. So this board, it just seems like it's shaped for the sake of there being a shape. Like, I don't know if any of these specific corners that it has would actually do any good, but my motto these days is to just try something and maybe it is good, So like, I don't have any reason why you wouldn't want that, Like, I don't think they would get in the way. I don't think any of that would cause you problems, and it might be better. I don't know. It's worth a shot. So I was talking to Andy Anderson about his board. Not this one, but like an experimental shape that he's going to do now. Now this is very weird. It's got all kinds of different grooves and angles and stuff, and they all have a purpose, and they all are made for specific tricks and work in certain ways. But he's working on a new board, and one of the experimental ones, I can't tell you whether it's going to be in the final version or anything. On this one, he didn't like when it would land flat. Let me just use this one as an example. If it would land flat, it would slam down and it could chip. So he has like this really mild curve that's this way. You can't tell just to look at it because it's like a really, really huge curve. So you can't tell as much. But if it lands this way, it would kind of rock. And so like it just protects the board slightly. And so he's trying all these different weird things to see if the board would perform slightly better, or if it would be, if it would last more time because it's not going to take as many hits with that type of thing. And so like sometimes all these really specific things have been well thought out, have been very carefully put there, and tested like in that particular case. And I think something else that is worth pointing out is that when a pro skater has a signature model, a signature shape, you can actually like get behind that, and you can really learn to skate like them, I guess, or like skate their stuff. So if I'm a big fan of a pro skater and he just skates a regular old popsicle board in a normal shape and a normal size, why would I buy his board when I could just go to the skate shop and buy whichever one is cheapest? Like some people, they want to support the brand that they like. They want to support the skater that they like, and that's great. But it makes a lot more sense to do that if their board is something special, if their board really has some personality to it and is very, it feels different from the rest of the boards out there, then you can want to get on that board and, it feels a little bit different. If it's like more of a customized fit, not just with the size, but if it feels better for you, then it's worth being different, as opposed to every board just being the exact same board with a different graphic on it. So I think that's why some of the brands are doing it. But I have some quotes for you. This is from a Jenkem article, which is linked in the description. John Lucero has literally forced his riders to skate non-popsicle boards. Oh, I only skate 8-inch boards, so I tell them, no man, that. Here's an 8.5. You'll skate this. And then I don't let them skate anything else. They bitch and moan at first, but then they get used to it and try to tell me, oh, I only skate 8.5 now. So then I make them skate a shaped board, and they'll cruise around until they're used to it, and then they love it. Man, who cares? It's just a board and it's just skateboarding. Sizes or shapes don't fucking matter. Just have a good time and stop worrying about it. Dude, let's face it, skateboarding isn't a big deal. It really isn't. It's hanging out with friends at a curb and drinking a Coke, talking about the girl you like or how much school sucks or how rad your board looks or whatever. And that's what weird shaped boards mean, man. They're a starting point to remember that skating is supposed to be fun, and they just look better. They bring some style back to skating. You can look like an actual individual, and that's pretty much what skateboarding is supposed to be about. And when you make or skate odd-shaped boards, you learn more about how the boards are made and how all these little details and measurements matter. Anything that makes you more knowledgeable and aware of your board is good for skaters and good for skateboarding. I think there's some really good points there, and I say stuff like that all the time. You know, you are riding around on a piece of wood, you sometimes flip it over, you sometimes slide on stuff. That's it. It's not a really serious thing. At least it doesn't have to be for most people. If you're pro and you're trying to meet a deadline for something, then it could be. But for most people who skate, it's just fun. So why not do something a little bit weird and see if you like it? I think that makes a lot of sense. And another point made in that article was that back in the day, when street skating was getting more and more popular, they wanted to differentiate themselves from the vert skaters by skating popsicles, because that was like the new shape at the time. And so it was almost a way to stand out against what all these old guys were doing. And now it's kind of the same thing. People have been skating a regular popsicle shape for so long that you stand out by not skating one now. The same, but the opposite. And I think that makes sense. So I think the sweet spot is finding a board that is shaped for a reason, or at least thoroughly tested to make sure it works, to make sure it doesn't like mess with certain tricks, you know, and just trying it out, you know. There's definitely purposes for, you know, the way boards are shaped in different ways. Like if I skate on a freestyle board, you know, like the tails are normally flat on the ends for Caspers, so you can balance them slightly better. You know, like there's ways that a board is optimized for a certain type of skating, and maybe you'll find that this weird shaped board at the shop is optimized by chance for the type of skating that you like. Or if you like the certain pro, it's optimized for their type of skating, and maybe you can try to do stuff like them with that board. So, you know, when I was doing this, I kind of changed my mind on it slightly. You know, like I think that I would like to try some more weird stuff, because like John said, like, it's just skateboarding, you know, have fun. So that's it for now. If you have any questions of your own, go to radratvideo.com, fill out the form on the homepage, and it will go right into my email inbox. You can submit them there. You can join on YouTube if you like the channel. You can support on Patreon, and you can hit the like button and all that kind of stuff. And just be subscribed for next time, and I will see you then. Thanks for watching.